right, so for long-term storage, what you'll want to do is you'll want to make sure that the batteries are out of all of these probes. Now, for dissolved oxygen and salinity, as well as the temperature probes, you want to store them dry. For the pH, you'll want to store it wet. That will increase the life of the bulb, and you use this pH storage solution. And you'll want to make sure it's completely moist in terms of the sponge. And you may need to come back because sometimes it'll dry out and crystallize, and you'll want to put a little bit more of that storage solution just to keep it wet and not dry out. But for these two, make sure that they're dry, completely dry, and you'll notice if you unscrew this cap, this is completely dry. There's no solution in here. So that's stored dry. This will crystallize if it's left out for too long, because even the O-rings, as good of a seal as you'll make, sometimes will dry out. Same with the this right here. The salinity meters need to be stored dried as well, and that includes the inside of the cap as well as these things. I air dry them, and you can air dry this one here as well before long-term storage. Another very important thing to do is to make sure that the batteries are out of each of these, because for long-term storage you will get sometimes these corroding and they'll wreck the entire sensor. So making sure that all of these are completely empty for batteries, storing the batteries separately in a Ziploc bag is good. So making sure that all the batteries are out of it. So these are all prepped for long-term storage and are good to go. Now, for storing these, make sure they're stored at room temperature. Do not store them outside where they may be exposed to freezing temperatures. Most of these you shouldn't be using in freezing temperatures anyway, because they are filled with fluids, and that will cause things to crack. In this case, the bulbs might crack in the pH meters, and for the these guys over here, they will actually burst the outside and may damage the probe end if they're stored in freezing temperatures. So make sure they're not stored in freezing temperatures. These over here, this could be used because there's no liquid in any of this one here, but so this one could be used in colder temperatures, but typically water testing isn't really done in the middle of winter. Now, you could use the salinity meters to test out soils and things like that, especially when things defrost a little bit, or you can test them inside as well. But make sure that these are stored over the winter, dry for these two, and for the pH, again, no batteries, and with the storage solution to keep that end wet.